Well, hi YouTubers, I'm back with the 60 books in isolation. And speaking of isolation, I picked a good one. It's called Marianne Dreams by Catherine Storr. Now, here we go. Ill and bored, with having to stay in bed, Marianne picks up a pencil and starts doodling a house, a garden, a boy at the window. The night she has an extraordinary dream, she is transported into her own picture. As she explores further, she soon realises she's not alone. Now, for those of you who grew up in the 90s, this is the film of Paperhouse. They based the film Paperhouse on this book. And it's interesting as well because I remember the film really, really well. And I absolutely loved the film. It was a psychological horror of basically a young girl in her dreams. The book is called Marianne Dreams, okay? And it's an incredible, incredible film. And I really hope everyone gets a shot at reading it or reading this book or watching the film one day. Now, interesting as well, of course. Now, I also knew of the film, okay? This book came out in 1958. Now, it's very, very of its time as well, the kind of language and dialogue and situation. However, also in a way, it's kind of a reaction to the kind of typical sick invalid child who get a fiction. Now, books like what Katie did, obviously getting stuck in a wheelchair or whatever, okay, and they get sick and they become better people, okay? Which is absolute. I hate that trope, okay? You know, the disabled saintly person, okay? I hate that trope, okay? She's not. Basically, Marianne absolutely can't stand it, okay? Like, it happens on her birthday, her 10th birthday, her double figure birthday. And instead of going for her riding lessons, okay, she starts feeling sick. This bit here. It wasn't until her lesson was over and she was home again that Marianne realised how tired she was. Not agreeably after exercise time, but extraordinarily achy, tired all over, an unpleasant sensation. She dragged herself and changed out of her riding trousers and then went down to the kitchen to find her mother, see how her birthday lunch was getting on. Okay? As the smell of chicken and peas came floating up the kitchen stairs, she realised she wouldn't be able to eat any of it. Okay? So straight after her riding lesson, she feels sick. Now, illness is never named. It could be maybe anemia or glandular fever. But all she knows is, okay, she can't leave her bed. She's too sick. She's just too sick to leave her bed. And she gets this magical pencil, okay, well, for a grandma, this old pencil, and starts to draw the house, okay, as you do. As everyone who's sick has done, or bored has done, or everyone's drawn a house at some point in their lives, okay, even built a house made out of Lego, we've all done it. And she starts to dream about the house that she made. And through her governess, that's interesting as well, okay, the fact is that, instead of once again, dialogue and language kicking up here, okay, she gets a governess, okay, which kind of Marianne's family's status isn't really kind of gone into, okay? But obviously, going to afford a governess, an actual governess, like Brian Maria, there's a bit of wealth going on there, okay? Most working class kids will not have a governess, okay? And this bit here, okay? Mrs. Chesterfield, who was the sort of governess that Marianne's mother had engaged, came for the first time the next morning. It wasn't all like Marianne's idea of a governess. It was mostly taken from old-fashioned children's books. Said that being middle-aged, she was rather prim and strict, and she was quite young and pretty. She was a little strict, perhaps not letting Marianne talk about other things, while she was supposed to be doing sums and dictation. When the 2 hours of lessons were over, and proved to be very funny, and quite prepared to listen to Marianne and to talk herself. Mary never met a real-life governess, wanted to know a lot about her. What was like being a governess? How she started to be one, whom else she had taught, and what our children were like. Okay, so she's interested as well. Now, obviously if you're into like psychology, you can probably throw Freud into this or something like that. I'm actually not. I just enjoyed the book for what it was. Okay. So, but the thing is, Miss Chesterfield's other patient is Mark. Now, throughout the dream, in the house, Marianne draws Mark, and Mark appears. And there's always a kind of ambiguity, okay? Is Mark actually really physically there, or just a manifestation of Marianne's psychosis? Okay, her dream state. There's always a kind of question mark going on. Is Mark just really just a random child, okay, whose physical self is not in the dream, okay? Because mentioned here polio. Now, I've got some experience about this, so dust on my foot, because my father, who's born in the 1940s, he actually had polio, and actually had polio about the time this book came out originally, 1958. He was About a couple of years younger than that, he actually had polio. He contracted polio. And he told me that he couldn't basically leave bed for about a year. Okay? And luckily, Dr. Salk found a vaccine. And how do you capture the sun? Polio has been eradicated. Vaccinate your children. Thank you. My parents are very big on vaccinations after what my dad went through. So basically, Mark's issue, okay, not the fact is he can't get out of bed. He won't get out of bed. He's got this element of stubbornness. And I said before, it's like a reaction to the typical children of the 1950 trope, okay? The saintly disabled child, okay? Sitting in your bed, basically around the house, what Katie did. So, right. And this bit here, okay? Not idle gossip, Marianne protested. Just tell me a little about Mark. Tell me if he's good at sums or history and things like that. Is he better than I'm seeing how to do problems, Miss Chesterfield? Or doesn't he have to do things like that if he's paralysed and can't walk? Okay? So the fact is, through Mr. Chesterfield, she's mentally built on this image of Mark, and Mark reappears, as kind of like Miss Chesterfield describes. Right. This bit here. And it's... Right. Marianne's mind did kind of a prodigious sleep. It jumped from uncertain ground in the dark to shore for the certainty. And its Marianne understood that she was now inside the house she'd only seen from the outside, that she got to where she felt she must get to, and that she was talking to the boy whom she left before in more or less of a temper. It didn't seem to be annoyed now any more than she had been before, only perhaps a little teasing. He hadn't appeared surprised to see her. He spoke almost as if she expected her to come. If they'd only just stopped talking to each other, with her outside the garden and him inside the house. You see, Mark's appeared. An apparition of Mark. And throughout the dream, and it's kind of interesting, okay, because Marianne, who absolutely hates being stuck in his bed, seems to can't wait to go back to sleep. It's interesting as well, obviously, from Marianne's point of view of her governess. It's kind of like her family kind of slip away from the structure. It's kind of like her family diminish, and she's more into Mark's realm, into Mark's world, through her sick bed, just through sleeping. It's also mentioned early on, okay, that Marianne actually has a brother. You never see him. You never see her brother. He's just mentioned. Hey, I'm just saying. Okay? So, but yeah, through this, okay? Alright, right. That is, before she'd been ill, Marianne has seemed to herself, and it's fair to say to most people, to be a good-tempered child. Never say she never got angry or smacked Thomas, her younger brother, when he annoyed her, but on the whole she very seldom lost her temper, and on the occasions where she did, she recovered again very quickly. But now she had to stay in bed for so long, Marianne found it increasingly difficult to feel or to be agreeable. A great many things seemed to annoy her. I wish she'd never noticed that being annoyed before, which now became unbearably irritating. Little things irritate you. As someone again to learn to walk again, little things irritate you. And it's like it. That's why I've shift around, it's full of metal. So basically, Marianne's become more irritable in this world, okay? But the thing is kind of like also interesting, cool, because as she's eventually getting better, in her dreamscape, Mark is getting sicker. And things okay out of frustration or temper, where she basically draws shadows and rocks with eyes that move, okay? Just kind of like, because in their relationship, if you will, she actually holds on in control because she's got the pencil on the wall. She's controlling the atmosphere. She's controlling the scene. She's controlling the narrative. And yet when she's in there, as it gets progressively worse for Mark, Marianne gets better, it gets worse for Mark. As I said before, I love to find some kind of academic text on this book, because it's a head screw. It's a beautiful, beautiful head screw. And it's really kind of ahead of its time as well. Let's go here. Right. I always find the drawing book. She snatched it open. I opened up the page of her drawing of the house with the boy who had been Mark in her dream, looking out. Marianne picked up the pencil, which had been lying beside the book, and scored thick lines up and down, up and down over the window. I hate Mark, she was saying to herself under her breath. I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. He's a beast, and he spoiled my present. She bought flowers for her governess, and so did Mark. They were better. I hate him more than anyone else in the world. I wish he was dead. Right. And then, when Marianne goes back to the hellscape, to the house, it's now become a hellscape because of her. Right. I can make things happen, she said to herself. I did before. The line I drew across the window exactly like the bars there. I'll get rid of Mark. I won't even see him again. She picked up a rubber and started to rub out the face of the window before she remembered that the pencil, apparently an indelible one, I couldn't be rubbed out. Sure enough, all the rubbing had no effect except to make the paper look rough and dirty, and now it gets more dirty than the world. See what I mean? Marianne is holding all the cards in this. She's holding all the cards in this. Basically, she controls the dreamscape, and it gets worse. And it's interesting as well, Key, because due to the manifestation of a lighthouse as well. Now, lighthouse is also quite interesting as well. I mean, for example, if you will, Jehovah's Witnesses, their magazine is called The Lighthouse, and they often give it out. Lighthouse is quite a symbolic of a higher power of God. Okay, the lighthouse, is all seen light looking out on us. And they kind of get this decision, okay, if they can get to a lighthouse, they can free Mark from this hellscape. And, you know, escape from the stones, which have eyes going through them. So, right. And interesting as well, once again, this is quite a psychological book, okay? When she had gone, Marianne lay and thought. She couldn't make up her mind about Mark, whether she was responsible for his illness or not. She felt like she suggested that she was responsible to anyone else, any grown-up person especially. They would say that it was a ridiculous idea, that she would think she was being self-important and silly. Yeah. So, but as I said before, Marianne is further along. This page 140 is when she can finally get up and get out of bed. Okay, Mark's become aggressively weaker. Okay, and sicker, and he wants to kind of be free. And Mark is actually dying. And Marianne is becoming better. Once again, it's kind of this juxtaposition. One's getting better, one's getting worse. And it's because this video recorded me. Before the hour was up, Marianne was aching to be back in bed, and when she finally got there, it was with tears of weariness and despair. Never mind, said Dr. Burton, who had called in on the end of his evening to see how she got on. Bound to be tired after the first time up. I expect you will wish you were dead, don't you? Everyone does when they have their first outing after 2 months in bed. Now tomorrow you can do exactly the same as you did tonight, then on Thursday make it an hour and a half. Now I don't know why that kind of recorded me as well, because after you want something for so long, actually getting it is trepidation. Now that's actually a really good thing to say, because I said before, I had this leg, I had to learn to walk it all over again. And my first physio session, when I had to put my foot to the floor, I had to be taught into doing it. I was physically scared of putting my right foot to the floor after so many months of it being either in a moon boot or a cast, that my physio had to convince me to put weight on my right leg again, and encouraged me to do it because it was so long. So I like that bit. And I think the words here, I wish you were dead. I bet you wish you were dead as well. That would not go well in these kind of books, okay, nowadays. But the fact is, it's dead. Death is like a constant presence in the story. And obviously that death is being Mark's, okay? Right. And it's just position, okay, between Marianne getting better and this bit here in the tower. Marianne never been so conscious of living two lives at once in the days and nights that followed their escape. By day, in her waking life, she was convalescent up to bed for 2-3 hours, half a day, and to get used to walking from one room to another, up and down the stairs, very difficult, this fat stumbling, coming down to ordinary meals at ordinary times, and facing their difficult problems of behaving ordinary, and leading about half an ordinary life, but being liable to attacks of sudden extraordinary tiredness and irritability. Yeah, living two worlds. She's living two worlds. Now, in the end, okay, Mark basically gets hold of the pencil. Marianne's been able to transport into the dream, and then Mark's in control of the narrative. And they don't. Well, it actually is a sequel, but I never read it. I think Mark comes back. So it's interesting from this kind of funny point of view of a book written back in the 1950s, a kind of a psychological issue. Now the language is very, very dated, okay, compared to books now. But the idea of basically a young girl in this bed, immobilized, creates this world where a sick child is magically transported, who's getting sicker while one's getting better, whereas one's controlling the narrative. In a way, one's a victim. Essentially, if Mark doesn't kind of correspond to what Marianne wants, she will wreck his reality. She has that power. She's actually not a good person. She thinks she is, but she's also entitled. She's spoiled. She basically, Mark will irritate her in the real world, so she will punish him in the dreamscape. It's fantastic. Now, I'm sure anyone who's read academic texts can recommend to me. I would love it. But Marianne Dreams, Paperhouse, by Catherine Storr. You were so ahead of your time with this. I loved it. Anyway, 60 Books in Isolation. Sign off. Take care, everyone. Bye now.